husband and wife have the right to choose to apply the statutory or agreed property regime. Basic contents of an agreement on the matrimonial property regime, prenuptial agreement, includes I. Property determined as common property and separate property of the husband and wife. 2. Rights and obligations of the husband and wife toward common property, separate property and related transactions, property to meet the family's essential needs. 3. Conditions, procedures and principles of property division upon termination of the property regime. 4. Other related contents. When choosing to apply the agreed matrimonial property regime, husband and wife may reach agreement on determination of property as follows. I. Matrimonial property includes common property and separate property of husband and wife. 2. Husband and wife have no separate property, and all property a spouse has before marriage or during the marriage period is common property. 3. Husband and wife have no common property, and all property a spouse has before marriage and during the marriage period is separate property of that spouse. 4. Property is determined as otherwise agreed by husband and wife. Although property regime is based on the wills of the parties, it still must comply with regulation of law. Agreed property regime shall be made in writing before their marriage and be notarized or certified. The agreed matrimonial property regime shall be established on the date of marriage registration. It should be noted that in case of applying the agreed matrimonial property regime, when establishing and making a transaction, a spouse shall provide a third party with relevant information. If a spouse fails to perform this obligation, the third party shall be regarded as acting in good faith and have his/its interests protected. An agreement on the matrimonial property regime shall be declared to be invalid by a court when I. It fails to meet the conditions on effective transactions. 2. It violates one of the provisions in Article 29, 30, 31, or 32 of Law on Marriage and Family 2014. 3. Its contents seriously infringe upon the rights of being supported and inherit and other lawful rights and interests of parents, children and other family members. Specifically, both parties must still comply with the regulations on general principles of the matrimonial property regime. I. Husband and wife have equal rights and obligations in the creation, possession, use and disposition of their common property without discrimination between housework labor and income-generating labor. 2. Husband and wife have the obligation to ensure conditions for meeting their family's essential needs. 3. When the performance of property rights and obligations of husband and wife infringes upon lawful rights and interests of the wife, husband, their family, or other persons, compensation shall be paid. Rights and obligations of husband and wife to meet their family's essential needs. I. Husband and wife have the right and obligation to conduct transactions to meet their family's essential needs. 2. In case husband and wife have no common property or their common property is not enough to meet their family's essential needs, they shall contribute their separate property according to their financial capacity. Transactions related to the home being the sole domicile of husband and wife, and transactions with third parties in good faith related to bank accounts, securities accounts, and other movable assets which registration for ownership and use is not required according to regulation of law. In summary, although property regime is based on agreement of both parties, this written agreement still must comply with regulation of law and is not allowed to violate rights of other party or any other individual, organization. If such agreement violates above provisions, persons with related rights and interests may request a court to declare it invalid. According to regulation of law, following agencies, organizations and individuals are entitled to require the court to declare matrimonial property regime of spouse invalid. I. Spouses have agreed on property regimes. 2. Person whose right and legal interest violated due to matrimonial property regime of spouse and his/her guardian. Once property regime agreement is mad, are both parties entitled to end it? In case of applying the agreed matrimonial property regime during the marriage period, husband and wife may reach agreement to modify and supplement some or all contents of that property regime or apply the statutory matrimonial property regime. The agreement modifying and supplementing the matrimonial property regime shall be notarized or certified in accordance with law. The agreement modifying and supplementing contents of the matrimonial property regime shall take effect on the date it is notarized or certified. A spouse shall provide a third party with relevant information. Property rights and obligations arising before the time of modifying and supplementing the matrimonial property regime must remain legally valid, unless otherwise agreed by involved parties. Upon divorce, the following case will apply statutory matrimonial property regime. It means that parties will reach agreement. If they fail to reach agreement, at the request of a spouse or both, a court shall settle it according to law on marriage and family. I. There is no written agreement of matrimonial property regime of spouse. 2. Written agreement of matrimonial property regime of spouse is declared completely invalid by the court. Case will apply agreed matrimonial property regime. There is a written agreement of matrimonial property regime, and this written agreement is not declared completely invalid by the court. The following cases will apply provisions of law on marriage and family. Sad face I. The agreement is insufficient or unclear. 2. The matters are not agreed by both husband and wife. It is important that spouses consult with family lawyers if potential disputes would lead to divorce for proper preparation before filing a lawsuit. We help clients overcome cultural barriers and achieve their strategic and financial outcomes, while ensuring the best interest rate protection, risk mitigation, and regulatory compliance. ANT lawyers have attorneys in Hanoi, attorneys in Ho Chi Minh, and attorneys in Da Nang.